The Terran Paradox. Chapter 1. The Enigma of Humanity. The vast conference hall on the neutral planet of Xandar buzzed with anticipation. 1,000 eyes representing 100 different species were focused on the lone human figure on stage. Dr. James Smith, his hands clasped tightly behind his back, cleared his throat and began his presentation. "Distinguished delegates," he began, his voice echoing through the chamber, "I stand before you today to address a paradox that has baffled scholars and diplomats alike for centuries." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. A holographic projection flickered to life behind him, displaying a swirling galaxy filled with countless stars and planets. "This," James continued, his voice a steady baritone, "is our home, the Milky Way galaxy. And within this vast expanse, a relatively young species known as humans has risen to prominence. But their reputation is perplexing." Another image appeared, a mosaic of historical scenes. Human warriors battling ferocious alien beasts. Human scientists unlocking the secrets of the universe. Human artists creating masterpieces that transcended cultural boundaries. On one hand, humans are renowned for their courage and resilience, their willingness to fight for what they believe in. They are fierce defenders of their own, and often the protectors of others. Yet, they are also known for their aggression, their capacity for violence, their seemingly insatiable thirst for conflict. A murmur rippled through the crowd, 1,000 voices whispering in 100 different languages. James saw nods of agreement from some delegates, frowns of disapproval from others. He knew his words were controversial, but he had come prepared. "I have spent years studying human history, culture, and psychology," he continued, "and I have come to a startling conclusion." He took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. The Terran paradox is not a contradiction. It is a duality. Humans are both warriors and healers, destroyers and creators, conquerors and liberators. They are a reflection of the universe itself, a microcosm of the endless struggle between chaos and order, light and darkness. The silence in the hall was deafening. Then a single voice broke the stillness. "Dr. Smith," said a tall, imposing figure with reptilian scales and piercing yellow eyes, "your theory is intriguing, but it lacks evidence. How do you explain the recent conflicts instigated by human colonies on the fringes of Kree space?" James recognized the speaker as Commander William Brown, a high-ranking Kree military official known for his hawkish views on human expansion. "Commander Brown," James replied, his voice calm but firm, "I acknowledge the recent tensions, but I urge you to consider the context. These colonies were established on worlds claimed by the Kree, but long abandoned and neglected. The humans who settled there were seeking refuge, not conflict. They were simply exercising their right to survive." Brown scoffed. "Survival or conquest?" Before James could respond, another voice interjected. "Perhaps," said a slender figure with pale blue skin and shimmering silver eyes, "we should consider a different perspective." The figure stepped forward, revealing himself to be John Miller, a renowned Xylorian scholar and a respected voice in galactic diplomacy. "Dr. Smith's research," Miller continued, "raises questions that cannot be ignored. The Terran paradox is a puzzle that, if solved, could lead to a deeper understanding of not just humans, but the very nature of our existence." James felt a surge of gratitude. He had expected resistance from the Kree, but Miller's support was unexpected. Perhaps there was hope for his research after all. As the debate raged on, James couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He scanned the crowd, his eyes searching for the source of his unease. Then he saw it, a flicker of movement in the shadows, a fleeting glimpse of a hooded figure with glowing red eyes. The shadow broker. The figure disappeared as quickly as it had appeared, leaving James with a chilling sense of foreboding. He knew that his research had stirred something ancient and powerful, something that lurked in the shadows of the galaxy, and he was determined to find out what it was. Chapter 2. The Forbidden Archive. The Xylo Prime sun beat down on James Smith and John Miller as they trekked through a dense jungle, their boots sinking into the damp earth. The air hung heavy with the scent of exotic flowers and unfamiliar spices, a stark contrast to the sterile conference halls of Xandar. "Are you sure this is the right way, John?" James asked, wiping sweat from his brow. The shadow broker's directions were rather vague. John, his blue skin shimmering with perspiration, consulted a data pad displaying a series of cryptic symbols. "Trust me, James," he said with a wry smile. "I've deciphered enough ancient Xylorian riddles to know a hidden path when I see one." Hours later, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, they emerged from the jungle into a clearing. Before them stood a towering stone structure, its walls covered in intricate carvings and weathered glyphs. "The Forbidden Archive," John whispered, his eyes wide with awe. "Legends say it holds the secrets of the Ancient Ones." The entrance to the archive was a massive stone door, sealed with a complex locking mechanism. John stepped forward, his fingers tracing the grooves and symbols on the door. "A pattern lock," he murmured, "and a rather intricate one at that." James watched as John's fingers danced over the symbols, his mind racing. He had studied human history and culture extensively, but this was a language he had never encountered before. "Any luck?" he asked after a few minutes. John shook his head, a frown creasing his brow. "It's not a language, James. It's a sequence of mathematical equations. Each symbol represents a numerical value, and the correct combination will unlock the door." James raised an eyebrow. "Mathematics? That's unexpected." "The ancients were masters of both science and art," John replied. "Their knowledge was far beyond anything we can comprehend." For hours they worked together, James's intuition guiding John's calculations. They tried countless combinations, but the door remained stubbornly sealed. Frustration began to gnaw at James's nerves. "We're missing something," he said, running a hand through his hair. "There has to be a key, a hidden clue." Just as he spoke, a faint glimmer caught his eye. A tiny inscription, barely visible in the fading light, was etched into the corner of the door. James leaned closer, squinting to make out the words. "The chosen species," he read aloud, his heart pounding. "Those who walk the path of duality shall inherit the stars." A shiver ran down his spine. The words echoed the prophecy he had uncovered in the Forbidden Archive. Could this be the key? With renewed determination, James and John returned to their calculations, incorporating the new information into their equations. The symbols on the door seemed to shift and rearrange themselves, as if responding to their efforts. Finally, with a resounding click, the locking mechanism disengaged. The massive stone door creaked open, revealing a dark passageway illuminated by flickering torches. James and John exchanged a look of triumph. They had unlocked the secrets of the Forbidden Archive, and the truth about humanity's past awaited them within. Chapter 3. Echoes of the Past. The air was thin and crisp as James Smith and Commander William Brown descended into the subterranean depths of Earth. Guided by flickering headlamps, they navigated a labyrinth of tunnels carved into the ancient rock. The silence was broken only by the rhythmic drip of water and the crunch of their boots on the dusty floor. "This place gives me the creeps," Brown muttered, his voice echoing in the confined space. "Makes you wonder what secrets lie buried down here." James, his eyes scanning the tunnel walls for clues, couldn't help but agree. The ruins they were exploring predated any known human civilization, hinting at a past shrouded in mystery. "The Forbidden Archive spoke of a lost city beneath Earth's surface," James said, his voice filled with quiet excitement. "A city built by the ancients, a repository of knowledge and power," Brown grunted. "Knowledge, maybe, but power? Sounds like a fairy tale to me." James didn't reply. He knew that Brown, a career military man, was skeptical of anything that didn't fit neatly into his worldview. But James's instincts told him that they were on the verge of a groundbreaking discovery. After hours of navigating the tunnels, they reached a large chamber. The air was still and cold, and an eerie silence hung in the air. The walls were adorned with intricate carvings depicting celestial bodies and enigmatic figures. "This is it," James whispered, his voice filled with awe. "The lost city." Brown's eyes widened as he took in the scene. Even he, with his hardened exterior, couldn't deny the sheer majesty of the place. In the center of the chamber stood a massive stone pedestal, upon which rested a strange, glowing orb. It pulsed with energy, casting an ethereal light that danced on the walls. "What is that?" Brown asked, his voice hushed. James carefully approached the orb, his heart pounding in his chest. He reached out a trembling hand and touched its surface. A jolt of electricity surged through his body, and images flooded his mind, swirling galaxies, towering cities, and ancient beings with eyes like burning stars. He staggered back, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Brown rushed to his side, his face etched with concern. "Smith, are you all right?" he asked. James nodded, his mind still reeling from the vision. I saw the ancients," he murmured. "They were magnificent." Brown frowned. "Hallucinations," he said dismissively. "Probably some kind of defense mechanism." But James knew better. The orb was a conduit, a window into the past. It had shown him a glimpse of humanity's true origins, a connection to a civilization far more advanced than anything they had ever known. As they continued to explore the chamber, they discovered more artifacts, strange devices, intricate weapons, and a series of holographic projections that depicted scenes from the ancient world. James's excitement grew with each discovery, but Brown's skepticism remained. He saw only danger, a potential threat to the Kree's dominance. "We need to report this to High Command," he said, his voice grim. "This technology could destabilize the entire galaxy." James knew that Brown was right, but he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story than simple power. The ancients had left behind a legacy, a message that he was determined to decipher. As they made their way back to the surface, James couldn't help but look over his shoulder, a sense of unease settling over him. He knew that the Kree were watching, and their interest in humanity's past was anything but benign. Chapter 4. The Genetic Key. The sterile white corridors of the Kree research facility hummed with an eerie silence. James Smith, disguised in a stolen Kree lab coat, moved swiftly through the shadows, his heart pounding in his chest. A stolen access card granted him passage through security doors, his every move calculated and precise. He reached his destination, a high-security laboratory marked with biohazard warnings. Through the reinforced glass window, he saw rows of containment pods, each housing a human subject suspended in a translucent liquid. A wave of nausea washed over him as he recognized the gaunt faces of captured colonists. Inside the lab, Kree scientists in sterile white suits hovered over computer terminals, their faces illuminated by the eerie glow of holographic displays. James slipped past a distracted guard and approached one of the terminals. "What the hell are they doing?" he muttered under his breath as he scanned the data. His eyes widened as he scrolled through genetic sequences and experimental logs. The Kree were manipulating human DNA, isolating and amplifying specific genes that enhance strength, agility, and aggression. The implications were horrifying. "They're creating super soldiers," James whispered, his voice filled with disgust. "They're trying to turn us into weapons." A cold fury ignited within him, but he forced himself to remain calm. He had to get this information out, expose the Kree's sinister plot to the galaxy. Just as he was about to copy the data, a voice behind him shattered the silence. "Dr. Smith, I presume?" James spun around to find himself face to face with a tall, slender figure cloaked in darkness. The only visible features were a pair of glowing red eyes, the same eyes he had seen flickering in the shadows of the Xandar conference hall. "The Shadow Broker," James said, his voice barely a whisper. The figure chuckled, a low, menacing sound that sent chills down James's spine. "Indeed," the Shadow Broker said, "and I must say your curiosity has led you down a dangerous path." James's mind raced. Was the Shadow Broker an ally or an enemy? Were they working with the Kree or against them? "Why are you helping me?" James asked, his voice laced with suspicion. The Shadow Broker stepped closer, their forms shimmering in the dim light. "Let's just say we have a shared interest in the Terran paradox. You seek answers and I seek to ensure that the truth is revealed." Before James could respond, a squad of Kree guards burst into the lab, their weapons trained on him. "Dr. Smith," a stern voice boomed, "you are under arrest for espionage and trespassing." James raised his hands in surrender, his eyes locked on the Shadow Broker. The figure simply smiled, a cryptic smile that sent a shiver down James's spine. "Don't worry, Dr. Smith," the Shadow Broker said, their voice barely audible above the commotion. "We'll meet again." As James was led away, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had just crossed a threshold, a point of no return. The truth about humanity's past was out there, waiting to be discovered. But the path to that truth was fraught with danger, and the stakes were higher than he had ever imagined. Chapter 5. The Terran Resistance. The cold steel of the cell door clanged shut, leaving James Smith in darkness. His heart pounded against his ribs, the adrenaline from his escape still coursing through his veins. He leaned against the rough stone wall, the weight of the galaxy pressing down on him. Earth was in danger, and he, a simple anthropologist, was its only hope. A faint scratching sound echoed through the cell. James held his breath, listening intently. A panel in the wall slid open, revealing a pair of familiar blue eyes. "John?" James whispered. "Shh," John Miller hissed, his voice barely audible. "We don't have much time." John reached through the opening, handing James a small device. "This will jam the security cameras and unlock the cell door. Once you're out, follow the tunnel to the right. The resistance will be waiting." James's heart swelled with gratitude. He had never doubted John's loyalty, but this act of defiance confirmed his trust in the Xylorian scholar. With a quick nod, James pressed the button on the device. The cell door clicked open, and he slipped out into the darkened corridor. He followed John's instructions, his mind racing with a plan. Chapter 6, A New Galactic Order. A hush fell over the vast assembly hall on Xandar, the silence amplified by the anticipation of billions watching across the galaxy. The air crackled with nervous energy as delegates from countless star systems awaited the human representative's address. James Smith, now a symbol of hope and defiance, stood at the podium, his gaze sweeping across the diverse crowd. "Honored delegates," he began, his voice resonating with a newfound authority, "we gather here today in the wake of a momentous event, a turning point in galactic history." Holographic displays flickered to life behind him, showcasing images of the Terran Resistance's victory against the Kree. Human pilots maneuvering nimble fighters against massive Kree warships, ground troops repelling boarding parties with fierce determination, and the ancient planetary defense system unleashing its awesome power. For centuries, my species has been known as the Terran paradox, a contradiction of warriors and healers, destroyers and creators. We have been feared, revered, and misunderstood. But today I stand before you to reveal the truth behind our enigmatic nature. James paused, allowing the weight of his words to sink in. We are not the aggressors we have been portrayed to be. We are not warmongers seeking galactic domination. We are the descendants of an ancient civilization, a people who valued knowledge, compassion, and the pursuit of a harmonious existence. He shared the revelations uncovered in the Forbidden Archive and the ruins beneath Earth, painting a picture of a proud heritage that had been lost to time. The Kree sought to exploit our potential, to twist our strengths into weapons of war. But they underestimated our resilience, our ingenuity, and our unwavering spirit. A murmur of astonishment rippled through the assembly as James's words challenged the established narrative. He saw doubt and skepticism in some eyes, but also a glimmer of hope and understanding in others. "We have proven that we are not a threat, but an asset to the galactic community," James continued. "We offer our knowledge, our technology, and our unwavering commitment to peace and cooperation." He paused, his gaze locking with Commander Brown's. The Kree delegate's face was a mask of barely suppressed anger and resentment. "To the Kree hegemony," James said, his voice firm but measured, "I say this, your actions have caused immense suffering and loss. But we do not seek vengeance. We seek reconciliation." He turned to face the entire assembly, his voice rising in passion. "To all the species of the galaxy, I say this. Let us learn from the mistakes of the past. Let us cast aside fear and prejudice. Let us forge a new galactic order, one built on mutual respect, understanding, and cooperation. Together we can create a brighter future for all." The hall erupted in applause, a thunderous roar that echoed throughout the chamber. James felt a surge of emotion, a sense of hope and purpose that he had never known before. As the applause subsided, John Miller stepped forward and placed a hand on James's shoulder. "Well done, my friend," he said, a warm smile gracing his features. "You have spoken for us all." James returned the smile, feeling a deep sense of camaraderie with the Xylorian scholar. Together they had not only uncovered the truth about humanity's past, but also paved the way for a new era of galactic unity. The Terran paradox was no more. In its place, a new chapter in galactic history was unfolding, a chapter filled with promise and the potential for a brighter future for all.